I've tried
Yeah.
calling you yesterday, but it was in do not disturb mode.
Who's my call?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah,
I
I've
don't know.
tried for 2-3 times. I couldn't connect to you, so I just left.
Hmm. This is surprising. I don't know. Okay. And please also reach out.
Right.
So I'm also available in WhatsApp. Okay. Please try
Okay.
to drop in a message saying that I'm not able to reach. Okay. I don't know
Okay.
that. Okay. This is something surprise which I have not seen. Um,
It's okay.
okay. Yeah. So I'll also available, and so please you can reach out me in WhatsApp also.
Sure.
Okay. So let me try to explain you regarding conversion. So basically, I know. So this is a question for all of you. That's what probably I may not mention you the details. Okay, and I'll show you how we can convert recordings. Basically, what does this GoToMeeting is doing in terms of recordings? So they are not directly providing converted recording. The only reason behind of it is, so like suppose you might have Linux users, Windows users, maybe Mac users. Okay, different different the operating system users may not play the same video file which I am going to be sending you, right? So for to avoid that problem, so they have given a generalized version called .gtm. So GTM stands for go to meeting extension, right? So GTM, so go to meeting file, so GTM. So that file need to be converted with help of recording manager. So how do you see that instructions? So if you see here instructions, so I'll show you go to meeting recording conversion. So you can see in their their official website, they're showing you the details for conversion steps. Okay, so you have something called okay, here is the option convert recordings. So whoever is joining the web, please, if you are joining from the web and you will not be having this option, you need to download the desktop version. So if you look at here, I have already downloaded the desktop version, so you should able to see here. The similarly, like if you see here, here is I have desktop version, so I have option called convert recordings, right? So the same thing was instruction is given in this. So using recording manager, so you need to click on convert recordings. Okay, and then so it will open up the recording manager pop-up window. Recording manager pop-up window. It will search the files called GTM extension files. Okay, by default it will search the files in the location, the default location it will automatically browse or the locates the files is called documents folder. If your document folders, if you have a file with the name called GTM, it will automatically looks that recording manager, and then it will give you a pop-up for you to convert the meetings. If you see here, there are 4 videos were selected, so this videos are required to convert. And then okay, in the drop down you have an option for to convert which format you want. Do you want in a WMV format? Then you can choose that. If you want in a MP4 format, you can select the MP4 format. So that's completely your okay choice which format of the video file that you want to convert. Okay, so it will supports for various operating systems. If you see .wmv .mp4 formats for Mac, okay, even for Windows also, and even for different other operating systems also you can select it. The moment so that you selected, click on convert recording, it will convert, and then it will place the file in the same folder, and you can open that later, and then you can listen your recordings. Okay, these are all the steps that you need to follow. Let me try to show you in my system also. Okay, here if you see I have a GTM file. So either you can go to open the here convert recordings, okay, window. If you open, if you see here, it is automatically detected saying that so these are all the files are not converted in recording format. Okay, that is the approach number 1. The second approach, you can also directly come the file, if you have already placed in the documents folder, if it just double click, and then so it will open up a recording manager window. So here is the recording manager window. So moment it is pop up, and then select maybe one of a video. Suppose I want to select this and click on, suppose I want to generalize it format like MP4, and then click on convert recording. Then it start converting of the our sessions. See here, it is starting, okay, and it generally requires some time. So please do this is offline, or maybe when you are attending the session, you can select the videos, and then so keep that is, and once if you open this, and it will keep on recording, and you can minimize and you can do your work, and you don't need to wait until
Srini, do we
yes.
need to download the desktop version? Means like we have to download .exe file?
Yes, please. You have to download the .exe file. So that's your desktop version of GoToMeeting. And please don't join for every day from web. It is good to, so just if you just double click on this this GoToMeeting, I don't know you're able to see a pop-up or not. So I have seen a pop-up. In this pop-up, just enter a meeting number, join. So it is easy. So whatever the meeting number that you are going to be joining, just enter the meeting number, then click on join. You can directly join the meeting. Okay, you
But
don't
no, if
go,
I try to download, it's asking like it's an only 14-day trial.
yeah, you don't need to go to the trailer version. Just you download, because I will be maintaining that. Okay, what is that? I will be maintaining the license period. I will be giving you the link. You don't need to worry about it. Okay, that you don't need to register at all. Registration is not required.
Mm-hmm.
You just download version, and then it will ask you to enter the meeting number, and you can enter the meeting number.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you are already
Okay.
there in a desktop, so you are already there in a web. If you just come down in the bottom, so you should able to see there is option called you should able to see option called switch to desktop. If you see in the options, if you come to the bottom, there is a small option for to switch to desktop version. If you click that, it will start download the desktop version.
Okay.
Okay. So
Okay.
any questions on the recording conversions?
No.
Okay. Others, please. Okay. Sounds good. So we are good. Now let's come back to the thing session.
Srinivas, I
Do
have
you
a
have any
question.
questions?
Hello.
Okay. Yeah, Uncle. Please go ahead.
Question that till now what we have covered, how many questions it can be formed for an interview in this?
What is that, Ankur?
Till now what we have covered, from that how many interview question can be formed?
There might be a lot many questions. Okay, can come. So the first question: can you explain about the difference between the application context versus bean factory? Okay, they might be asking you, how do we activate the bean factory? Okay, so configuration. Okay, so how do you register as a bean? You can think, okay, so it doesn't mean that so there is a particular question may come from this, but very common question what you can see from out of that is the differences between the bean factory versus the application context. So that is a very generalized question that you can expect from interviewer. It depends on interviewer, like he can ask you various questions, okay, in a various aspects with the same concepts of what we covered so far.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Go to mute. There is a lot of disturbance. I don't know others has the same problem or not, but I am able to see a lot of disturbance when Ankur was started asking anything. Okay. All right. So going back, so the yesterday sessions. Okay. So far we are familiarized for building Spring applications. Okay, how do we then? So we have seen about the other aspects like using a normal standard approach for to downloading of the jar files, then adding into the application. Then the second thing we have so Maven approach, okay, and then so we have used the bean factory, and then so we have seen about the other the example is for to how do we activate the application context and what is the benefit of that, and I showed you practically how we are really managing that. Okay, next other important aspects on the from bean side is called bean scopes. Okay, so every bean is having a several scopes that you can activate for a bean. Okay, have given you some couple of scopes here. So by default you can enable for a normal beans, so for a simple beans you can use a scopes called singleton or prototype. So these two are for a standalone application. You can give a scope called either singleton scope or prototype scope. So what do you mean by singleton and what you mean by prototype scope? Very popular interview questions. Okay, very popular interview question. So the interviewer may ask you, can you explain about the bean scopes, or what will be a default scope for a bean? Okay, and so what will happen if I put for my scope as a for my bean scope as a prototype? So they can ask you in a different aspects. Okay, but I want you to be get ready with various aspects. Okay, so for a standalone application, so these two bean scope, singleton and prototype, I hope by this time everybody knows what is singleton and prototype, but however let me explain you. The singleton is nothing but so a bean which will maintain a single object across their application life cycle. So those type of beans or those type of bean scopes are called singleton bean scope. Okay, so and by default in spring environment, so by default spring will recommend every bean in a singleton scope. By default every bean is will maintain a default scope called singleton. If you not mention any scope, it means that that bean is comes under category of singleton. Whatever the bean so that we have developed without our knowledge, that bean is a singleton bean. I'll show you practically. So but singleton bean may not be okay, so may not be sufficient for all the time. Okay, you may require a different object for every time. So then the singleton scope is not sufficient for such requirements. Then absolutely you required for every time when you access, so you need a different objects. So then so you it's called prototype. So the moment, so if you are accessing, I want to construct a new object and then give it to me, so then it's called as prototype bean scope. So it is exactly opposite to your singleton. The singleton, it will make sure that it will maintain only one object across your application, whereas the prototype, for each bean request it will construct a new bean object and then it will share it to the column. So that is called prototype. Can you give me an example where prototype scope can be used or prototype scope is going to be required? Suppose example, like let's say for every time when you log in into the system, the each time when you log in, the different users will log in into your system, right? So you cannot use the user one login the object to user two. What you have to do, you have to compulsory construct a user two object separately. You cannot reuse this object for second user. Similarly, there is a one more user is going to be login. You cannot reuse either user one or user two. You must should construct a one more object. In this particular scenario, definitely singleton is not a suitable bean scope. because every time we require a separate user object. That user object is specifically to that current login user. So, and for to manage this, and you should be required a prototype. I mean, I'm just giving an example. Okay, this maybe applies to various situations, various scenarios. Okay, so these are all for standalone environment. The same like in web application environment also, we have different scopes like request scope, a session scope, and global session scope, like this. So we have a different the session scope, and this will be only activated when your context container is the web application context container. Okay, this will be not, so these scopes are not accessible either bean factory container or application context container, and there is a special container for to access this scopes is called web application context container. So using that context container we can access all the scopes. Okay, and so you can also implement your own custom behavior. Okay, I am not, okay, my requirement is does not suiting either simple, okay, or even web up, okay, web where scopes. You can also implement your own custom requirement behavior if you really want, but ultimately 99% is you don't go to any custom implementations. Only, okay, the existing bean scopes are really fair enough, but until unless if you are really designing another framework, you may require, okay, for to customizing implementation, otherwise really not required. Okay, so now let's see the practical implementation for this. So, and what is all these different bean scopes, and hopefully you know what is the request scope means. The request scope means for every request, so every user, the moment when they click on request and I want to construct a new object, so then it's called request scope. And session, for one session and we want to maintain one object. If it is a different session and then I want to have a different so object. So for each session I want to maintain a object, so then it's called session. Okay, session level of object. Global session, you know, it is called servlet context for across the application. Okay, whenever the context is created for application, so okay, then the global session object will be constructed, right? So then for that, so when the global session is constructed, that time you want to construct an object, so then you can mention the scope as global session, right? So these are all the different bean scopes can be used, and depends on your requirement you can apply those bean scopes. And let me show you how you can use this in an application. So any questions from anybody before we start up our practical implementation? Okay, again, so I don't want to disturb the the existing application. I'll try to for every concept, for every topic. So let's build a new application, so it will be easy for you all to refer. Okay, looks like no questions. I'll be adding the bean scopes project. So, and as you all aware of that, we know how to create a project, Maven project. You all know how to build it. So probably for to save this time, you can also copy this project and then you can, okay, so build the another project. So you don't need to really so create every time. So that is unnecessarily wastage of our time, right? So what I'll do, so I'll go ahead and copy paste this project so that we will be getting a new project. Let me copy paste this. Okay, I'll copy and paste it. Okay, so it is asking me to give the project name. So 004 Spring Dependency Injection. So bean scope projects. Okay, and I'll give project. Okay, so that we can save some time for reusing of the existing project. I just copy and then paste it. So the fourth project should be ready. Yes, project is ready. It is recommended to please go ahead and change in your pom.xml file because it may going to be referred to previous project. Change your project name and then artifact details, all other details. Come on. Okay, everybody else is joined in a desktop. Only Pramod has to join. I think so. Deep, who's the so, and he has to join. So both of you, please download your desktop version. Okay, so here, okay, I have project name. I'll replace with our new project name. That's it. So that's the only change what you need to make it. So other than that, everything is good. So now I'm changing. Okay, so now our brand new project is ready. So with the same name. Okay, I'll close this, and we need the same libraries. I'll close this form.xml file. It will automatically so change it. So now let's go to the bean scopes. Okay, so I will be reusing this. So where you will really mention the bean scopes, okay, in the Spring configuration file. And I said by default the scope is Singleton. What is the practical proof that so by default it's a so Singleton scope? So and for to address that, so let's go to the client class. So what I will do, I will try to access the same bean again using context.getBean. Again, I will try to access the same thing, but I will try to construct a new object at this time. So let's see how many objects are going to be constructing internally. So what I'll do, I will try to construct this again second time. So that is second bean object. Okay, so I'm trying to constructing a second bean here. Okay, so second bean object, so demo bean obj1. Okay, then so I can call the business methods. Then I can call the business methods. So using second bean object, right? And then so what I'll do, I will let me write this here. Okay, using business one. So call using demo bean obj apply. Okay, I'll remove everything. So how do you know how many objects are constructed? Based on your constructor call, right? If your constructor is called more than once, that itself is proved that. So if it is only one time, if it is called, there is only one object. If it is called more than once, that represents so multiple objects are constructed, right? So that's the simple proof. So now let me run this code and let me show you now. Go to run as Java application. The same bean I've constructed a different objects here, but if you see actually in the bean factory container how many objects are constructed, you will be getting no. So I'm executing the application. Now you can see here. Okay, so demo bean impl object is constructed is called only once. If you see here, setter injection is performed and demo bean impl object is created. I'm able to see only one. But if you see, so but I'm calling, so using demo bean obj and I'm getting the object and then I'm calling again using the second object I'm calling. But I'm feeling that it is the second object, but absolutely the originally the object is constructed is only once. Originally, the object is constructed is only once, but it is not really returning a new object when I am constructing a new object reference. These two are just the references which is pointing into the same existing objects in the container. So these two are absolutely not a new objects. So here is the practical proof, right? So my requirement is no. For every time, okay, when I'm saying that demo bean object, I need a new object. So I don't want to be written a singleton object. So here is the practical proof that by default the bean scope is a singleton scope. Okay, singleton scope. For to convert from singleton scope to prototype scope, so what we need to do in the Spring configuration file, so you have an attribute called scope. Okay, so we have attribute called scope, and whatever I explained you, all the details are being mentioned here. This scope is being typically singleton, so one shared instance which will be written by all get bean methods with the given ID. It's called singleton. What do you mean by prototype? Prototype means so independent instance of resulting from each call of get bean method, and by default the bean will be in a singleton scope unless the bean scope has parent definition, which case it is inherited from the parent scope. So singleton are most commonly used and are ideal for multi-threaded service objects. So mostly recommended to go with the singleton approach, and you have similarly request and then session also, right? Now let me show you. So let me enable the bean scope, and if I click on, if you see, so officially you are able to see only 4, and initially we have even custom implementation, so these are all outdated in the latest versions. Okay, in the legacy version you are able to see runtime for these two and web score, so you have all this, but now the global session is outdated and custom implementation is outdated. Thread scope is also outdated. You are only see a 4 bean scopes. Okay, so now let me select this time prototype. So if I select a prototype, so what was the expectation? The expectation should be, so the object should not be constructed before application container. Now application context container should behave differently. The application context container should construct your objects only when the scope of beans are singleton. When the scope of the bean is not decided as a singleton, so the application context container should not look at those beans, because it will be constructed when on demand whenever the object is required. So the application context behavior is going to be switching in this aspect. Now let me run this code and show you. So I'll be run as Java application. See here how many times you are expecting to call the constructor. See here, so application context container is ready. At this time, still at this point no object is constructed, but your context container is ready. Because why the application context container is ignoring? Because the scope of bean is changed. So that time the application, so that's a conditionally constructing objects. Now if you see, so call using demo bean one object. So whenever if you are really trying to calling a business method, so then that time only the constructing the objects, the object is constructing. So if you see a demo bean IMPL object is created once, and again second time when you am calling again it is called. So can you say, so these are all different objects now. Now it is not a singleton scope, right? It is this type of behavior is called prototype scope. So it is an independent instance, independent object will be constructed, then it will be written. This approach is not recommended until unless we have a special scenario with special requirement. Please go ahead, then change your bean scope and then use it. Spring don't want anybody to control the objects. Okay, so Spring will construct all the objects and it will return to you, and you can use whenever you want, but only you have a controls to access. You can request, it will construct the object, it will return you, and it knows okay when to destroy those objects. Okay, So when to make it as available, everything will be managed by the container. Okay, so suppose now we are in standalone environment, but we are trying to attempting to access maybe one of the, so okay, the approach called session. So what will happen? Can anyone guess? So what will happen for this approach? Can anyone guess?
For
So what will
each
happen?
session, one object will be created.
Okay. So in this case,
Like,
if I run this application, so you are saying that only one object will be constructed?
yes.
And session you can also have the record of previously created object. So it's like suppose next object whichever is created, it will have a record of the previous created object.
Okay, so if I use a session, okay, give me direct answer. How many objects will be constructed? Is it only one
One.
or multiple? Simple question. One or two? Only one
One.
from okay, from only one from Prashanti. How about others? Amit, Deep, and Pramod. I want everybody should be active participation, please. Okay. Pramod is also one. So looks like so majority of the people are saying that it's only one object will be constructed. Okay. The simple answer for this is no object will be constructed. Simply you will get an exception. Okay. The answer for this is no
Yes,
object will be
yes.
constructed. The exception will be returned. Why there
Because
is
this is
exception?
not used for application context.
Exactly, exactly. So that's what answer which I'm expecting. So it will try to search your application session, but so there is no application session available in the standalone version. So absolutely, so it will try to put this object in that session, but so there is no session is available. Simply it returns you the exception without constructing any object. Let me try to show you practically. So okay, go to run as Java application. You see here, it is attempted. It is trying to registering a bean on the session level, but so there is no session identified. So java.lang illegal state exception, no scope registered for scope of session. So it is failed to, okay, it is failed to constructing the objects. The object will be constructed only when the respective scopes are available. Then only it will place that object in the respective scope. It will attach in that scope. The scope, okay, the session is not available, but this can be only accessed when your context container is web application context container. Then only you can access it. Otherwise, you cannot access it. Okay. Same thing is also applicable for even for request also. The both request and you can try that. So okay, in the offline. So I'll select in a prototype. So that's the pretty much knowledge about bean scopes. Very simple concept, but it's really important for to understand whenever if you are using any beans. It's really understand how the beans are work, how the objects are constructed. This is a really important concept. All right. So any other question from anybody? And before we move on into the next concept. Okay, sounds good. So far we are familiarized for to performing a constructor injection using Spring configuration file. We are able to inject using setter approach. We are able to inject the objects, right, for your bean, right? So how about constructor injection? How does constructor injection will work? Okay, how do you perform the constructor injection? And let's start with the example of how to perform constructor using constructor injection. Okay, There are questions are coming up, so let me cancel this recording. I don't need that conversion. Okay, let me look at the questions. The question from Pramod. So Singleton is JVM level. Absolutely, only one JVM will be used for to run the application. So whenever if you launch your application, only single JVM will be used to run your application. So which is your application level? Absolutely, you are correct, Pramod. So it's application level. You can also call it as it's a JVM level. So one JVM will be utilized for one application. Okay. The next question from Ankur. Can you repeat where prototype is required? Okay, wherever you require independent objects. Okay, wherever you require an independent object. So you can consider in any scenario, I want to be an independent objects. Okay, so example I've given for suppose whenever the user is logged into the system. Okay, I need a independent object, because for every user is going to be having a unique user object. His user login create is different, right? Make sense? Okay, so the question from Pramod again. So in JVM might will be there is a different application. Yes. So okay, so different JVM for different application. For to launch one application, one JVM is fair enough for to launch any application. I'm trying to speaking in terms of application context. The application context will be constructed per JVM. Okay, and for per JVM, so then your object will be a single object. Are you following me, Pramod? Okay, let me explain you. Okay, so whenever if you are bootstrapping of your Spring application, what it will do? The first, it will allocate one JVM for this application. Within that JVM, it will construct the bean factory or the application context objects within the JVM. And whenever if you are registered any bean, so bean configuration file will be loaded automatically. It will look up how many beans are there, and that many number of the beans are constructed under the application context. That application context is registered with the JVM. So whenever if you are trying to attempting to access the bean, what it will do is this bean object is already available in the application context or not. Definitely, if that application context is associated, means it will. And if that object is not available in the application context, it will try to attempt to create an object, because it will check only within that application context. So that application context is dedicated to that particular JVM. And if that object is available, it will return the same objects, because it will also check the condition, is the scope is singleton. Yes, then it will return that existing instance. If that is not available, if the scope if that is not available, it will construct a new object, then it will send it to us. If the bean scope is prototype but still object is exist, then again still it will write a new of demo bean IMPL, then it will construct a new object, then it will send the return back to us. So that is how exactly internally it will maintain the objects by the Spring context, application context container or bean factory. Does it answer? Okay, thank you. So for one application is only one JVM is enough to handle that application, right? So any other questions before we start? So question from Ankur. So can you please provide us some different example for prototype? Absolutely, yes. Suppose let's say in a multi-threaded environment, I'm developing a batch application. Let us assume I'm developing a batch application. Okay, so I want to construct a employee object. Okay, I want to construct a employee objects. So for every time I want to build, like for every 100 employee objects I want to uh, uh, build as a one batch, then I want to send it to the application for to run. So for every time when I'm constructing an object of employee object, I need a different objects for every time. Okay, so I may not going to for every time I want to construct a new object, and which I want to give the controls to Spring Framework. So what this will do, every time it will construct a new employee object, then set the data, prepare the objects, and then okay, like this. So you can prepare 100 objects, so then send it to in a batch. And once the batch will be processed, and once if it is completed, automatically those objects will be destroyed. So like this, in a batch environment also, the bean scope is going to be useful. Does it make sense? Okay, all right. So next, moving on into the next exam. Okay, next concept, constructor injection. So how do we build a constructor injection? Let's go with the example. Let's start with the Maven projects. Okay, approach, but here it will try to look up your constructor. Let's look at the example. So 005 underscore Spring Core module. Okay, constructor injection. So dependency injection using constructors. Constructor injection project. Okay, so that's my name of project. So package, I'll use the com.easylearn is our regular package. So let me click on finish it. So, and meanwhile, so let's get so the in pom.xml file, the dependencies we have already identified, I will reuse all these dependencies. Okay, we required for our next application. If you are performing constructor injection, you don't need any special libraries, only the core libraries are enough to even work with the constructor injection. So I will be reusing the same libraries. So for in Maven dependencies, so there is no libraries are available. Now if I add in the pom.xml file, it will make sure that it will add all those libraries in the build path. Okay, all the beans are get ready. So we are ready to, so application is ready to start or to perform constructor injection. So let me prepare a class to perform example of maybe employee class. Okay, so I will construct a employee object, and this time I don't want to construct an interface. Okay, so I think a couple of you are asked, can I write a bean without interface? Absolutely, you can write, but generalized approach to write an interface, I mean, if you are really writing a business logic, okay, and if you are bean, so it's recommended to, because implementation providers can be different providers, right? Not only implementation class. So it doesn't mean that every bean you have to write the same thing. Okay, so suppose I'm going to be writing a normal Pojo class, which I don't want to be as a interface and then implementation, because it's a simple Pojo class where I have my constructor, setters and getter methods. So then absolutely you don't need an interface. So here is an example. Okay, so I'm going to be writing a class, employee bean is a class. Okay, and so employee bean is a class, so which I'm preparing. So click on finish without any interface. Okay, employee bean object is ready, and you can write required properties what you want. Suppose I want to write some properties, like let's say private. Okay, suppose I want to write like integer, so employee ID. Okay, and private string, some attributes of the employee I'm writing, employee name. Okay, and private string. Okay, so department of the employee. Okay, so private, so string, or maybe, okay, you can use different data types. What is my goal is to use different data types. So boolean, okay, type of the employee, so either is a contractor or permanent. If it is a contractor, okay, it will be false. If it is a permanent employee, it will be true. Okay, if he is contractor means it will be true. Okay, if he is not, it will be false. That's up to you. Like this you can add different attributes. Okay, different attributes you can write. Okay, string address. Okay, otherwise maybe let's use boolean, sorry, floats. Okay, and I want to use for so salary. So employee, like this you can give a number of properties for an employee, right? Only this properties is fair enough for me to generate a constructor. If I want to generate a constructor, right click, so you have option called source, and then so you have option called so generate a constructor using the fields that you have written in the class. Okay, so I'm trying to generate me a constructor, because if I want to perform a constructor injection, I should be required a constructor, right? Now constructor is ready with this all these attributes. I'll remove the super call. Don't have any super. That's it. Okay, so now what I'll do, we required a Spring configuration file for to register this as a bean. Okay, let me write a Spring configuration file. Spring bean configuration file. Spring-config.xml. okay, is my Spring configuration file, and you can select what DT that you want. Okay, click on next and finish it. Spring configuration file is ready. What you need to do, you need to register as a bean. Okay, so bean class. So the bean ID you can give any name. So I will give emp object. Okay, so class. And so what is the class name? Employee bean class. So please try to mention fully qualified class name. Okay, then so what you need to do when you want to construct this, it is giving you error. Why? The bean of unique identifier, and a bean may not be used in more than once in a bean element, so that is different. Okay, but if you place this cursor over, it is unable to construct the object, because it will by default it will call the default constructor. But if you want to call a default constructor, you need to supply all this. So how do you supply all this? By performing constructor injection, you can supply those values. Okay, that's what you are getting an error. Okay, how do you perform constructor injection? If you want to perform a constructor injection, so there is an element called constructor arg. Constructor arg is required to perform the constructor injection. Okay, so then use the constructor arg, then you can pass the values. Suppose first employee ID, so then you can specify, so constructor arg as the attribute called employee ID. Suppose employee ID is 1001 is employee ID. So likewise what you can do, you can supply for all the different attributes. So only one argument is enough? No, it will give you the error, because so the bean definition can specify the 0 or more constructor. So it is trying to looking with, is there any constructor with this only single argument, but there is no constructor with this name. So then simply it is giving you an error. So when these errors are resolved, if you pass the equivalent to this all the arguments of the constructor, then this error will be resolved. Then you are performed constructor injection. Let me try to paste all the different values. How many we required? So employee ID, so employee name, so like let's say, so employee name, okay. So you can write any name, okay. So like let's say employee name, I like Amit Kumar, okay. And so what is next? So what is next attribute? So department, so he's belongs to Java, okay. So what is next? So is a contractor? No, he's a full-time employee, so we'll return false, okay. So then, so salary, like let's say is getting so 90,000, okay. Close everything. Now all the attributes you have supplied, right? Now save this. Error is gone automatically because you are performing a constructor injection. So all these attributes, all the values can be injected at the time of construction itself, and you don't need to, okay, you don't need to inject separately, you don't need to inject separately, right? So you can directly so in case of setter injection, so what it will do, first it will construct the object of the class, later it would call all the setter methods. So that's called setter injection. But here it's in one shot, that at the time of constructing the object itself, it performs the constructor injection as well, right? So for simple, okay, for your reference, I'll write here system.out.println, okay, system.out.println, come on, okay, constructor injection is performed. You know, constructor injection performed, that represents, so your object is also constructed, okay. Constructor injection, okay, constructor injection is performed. So that is what I have written. Now, so what else? So we are ready, bean is registered and constructor injection is done. So, and what you need to do, you need to write a client class. So let us assume, so this is my client class. Let me rename this app.java2, give some name, okay. Give me some name, okay. Okay, let me write Spring test client, some name, okay. Sprint, okay, this, no problem. Okay, so let me Spring DI client, I'll write like this. Okay, continue, and it will automatically reflect. All right, so you want to test it? Yes, done. Okay, so now what I'll do, I'll go ahead and then write the code. You know, okay, how do you write the code for to activate your class? So the application context, so context equal to, okay, new class path XML application context. Where is your configuration file is located? Under const slash easy learn slash spring -config dot XML is your application configuration file is located. So once this is ready, so what is your next step? Okay, so you need to look up directly bean context dot get bean is a method. Okay, so what is the bean object name, so which we have given? So emp obj, what I remember, right? So then, so it will return you the return type is objects, right? So let me place into the employee bean the return object. So what I am expecting is employee bean objects. That's it. You need to cast it because the get bean method will return the objects, and you cannot directly cast it to employee bean. you need to perform casting, saying that I know the bean which is returning is employee object only. Then simply that's it. I'll write a system.out.println. So I'll print the employee objects. The whole process is called constructor injection. The whole process is called constructor injection. Now let me see. Okay, let me run this code. Now if I go to run as Java application, if you look at here, constructor injection is successfully performed, and then your object is also printed here. How do I know whether all these values are injected or not? Okay, for my property, all these values are injected or not. How should I display? I display bean class? Okay, but it is saying that it is indexed. Okay, it is injected, right? How should I? Just Mr. Who's that name? Ankur. So you cannot access, okay, object. So employee object dot get name I cannot access because those are all my private properties. Okay. Pramod. Okay. Very brilliant answer. Okay. So, and absolutely, if you really want to know all these properties, what you need to do, instead of printing a, okay, the super type of, I don't have any getters and setters also, Ankur. Okay, for to handle this situation, and I don't want to be any getters and setters, but I want to print instead of the super type of hash code implementation, and I want to print all these values of this, you need to simply override toString method for to display all this content. So simply, how do you override toString? So there is an option called override toString method. So go to here, okay, select all the attributes of that bean, and then so click on OK, and your toString will be just. Hello, everybody is able to hear me? Okay, I lost internet connection, so I connected to different Wi-Fi network. So, okay, sounds good. So, and what I did simply, I have overridden toString method on this, right? So that is fair enough, okay, for to display the object of this. Now let me run this code and show you. Okay, I'm just running this. Now if you see, the whole my employee object is being printed with the values. So exactly for employee ID place employee ID was injected, employee name place employee, department constructor conduction and salary. But where actually all this was being mentioned, so constructor injection. So the constructor injection is with various values are injected. Okay, so that's how constructor injection will work. Okay, again is singleton bean, singleton scope, all the features will be applicable if injection as well. Whatever the features so that you are learning in the setter injection, same applicable in constructor injection, but only thing is what you can see the difference between constructor injection and setter injection is the setter injection is required the setter method to perform the setter injection, but whereas the constructor is requires the constructor setter. In the property configuration after writing a beam class, if you are using a constructor-org, it looks the constructor in your class. Okay, and that's the change. So, and if you want to perform a setter injection, so then you have to use the element called property. Okay, so these are all the different things so that you need to remember. So there is a lot of things that need to be explored. Okay, in this constructor part. Okay, I just have given a basic demonstration of constructor injection, but there are a lot many things that we need to discuss, which we will continue in the next session. Okay, any questions? So before we go from this session, okay, any questions so far? Any doubts? Okay, please practice day by day. I will be adding into the complexity. Okay, so day by day I will be introducing a new topic. So if you're not practicing the first session, will be complicated for you. Okay, so please try to complete and day to day before you attempting the next session.
Srini, see if, in the same way how we do it for property for the constructor org, also we can add the scope in the tag, right?
Yes, exactly. Okay, you can you scope. So whatever the scope so that you want in the same way, so you can suppose I want to add, so this is a singleton scope. So by default it's a singleton, want explicitly mentioned, no problem, you can go ahead and then configure. So run as Java application. Okay, any other question?
Okay, fine. Sure. And this video recordings, once we close the session, we will get a prompt, right?
No, I will be sending you in the email. Okay, if you see in my email yesterday, so okay, you will see a link for recording. Okay, and
Yes.
probably you don't have a control for you to record. Okay, but I am controlling from my side. So so I am recording at my system. I will be uploading into the Dropbox. So open your email and then press that link. So it will pop. So it will pop up you to download. So once if you download, then you need to perform the recording conversion using recording manager.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. So question from Pramod. So I have one question for scope. I will ask when you teach an object as a property. Absolutely sure. So yes. Okay. I'm planning to change the meeting link. I will change it soon. So you will get the another meeting link. Notify in the email. Okay, so let's also have a session in Saturday. I would personally recommend to have the sessions on weekend. Please have a sessions the weekend as well. Okay, and that's all for the day. Okay, have a wonderful day to all of you and see you on the next session. So we have a session tomorrow. Okay, all right, so have a good day. Bye bye.